The topic of my PhD is branded content, and I dived into this emerging market in Israel and Britain and looked at reality television programs, but my look was much broader than just entertainment, and it aimed to say something broader about this phenomenon of branded content. What I brought here today was actually a project which is first and foremost an activistic project that was an outcome of my PhD, and it was oriented at measuring and evaluating the penetration of this phenomenon that we do not call, and I'll talk about it later, branded content, but rather stealth marketing, or in the PhD I called it embedded branding. So as you can understand, I'm coming from a critical point of view to this phenomenon, and which would be a little bit different from most of the voices that we heard so far. I think it makes it interesting. So the aim of the project was to try and evaluate to what extent did this phenomenon of branded content, stealth marketing, native advertising, call it whatever you want to call it, has penetrated into journalistic content in online news outlets in Israel. And what we did is we used the approach I presented in the PhD to try and create a tool to say something on how much it is present in the news we consume, in our case in Hebrew, but you know, that language is not a barrier, it's just a beginning. What was interesting, so mainly it's a pilot, what I'm going to show you. You know, it's not a methodological or a research proper tool yet, but for me, because this project was much more successful than we expected in creating impact and discourse around it and awareness, it was brilliant news, because I thought it's a beginning of how do we talk about this phenomenon, how do we measure and evaluate its presence, and how do we also maybe explain it to audiences, and that's about media literacy. So this is just the image that was kind of coming with this project, and we did it, that I have to say, we did it with the Seventh Eye. The Seventh Eye is a media watchdog in Israel, an independent media watchdog which I'm part of. I'm on the editorial board of the Seventh Eye, and I'm also a contributor to the Seventh Eye, and it's all about media criticism. It's journalism on journalism or on media, so it's journalists and academics like me writing about the politics and hidden pressures in Israeli media. So I can talk forever about the Seventh Eye because it's really something that is very close to my heart, but I'm just, that was the platform that we did this project, and ironically it was called the marketing leaders of the year, yeah, and like we use these dogs because in Hebrew we say that the media is the watchdog of democracy. So we said, okay, we took these dogs and kind of showed how they're really becoming corrupted by commercialism. Basically, it was a stealth marketing index for online news outlets in Israel, and the outcome of it was. I'll try to show you. How can I do escape here? Wait. Yeah, I'm trying to go back because I want to open this link if possible. Yeah. So it's in Hebrew, so I don't, you know, it's not like sex-free because you can't read anything of it. But just to show you, the outcome was qualitative in the sense that it was a project of us writing different texts, you know, about different media outlets in Israel. So that was one outcome, and let's go back. And the other one was more, in a way, quantitative, trying to rank the 7 leading news outlets, online outlets, not print, not anything else in Israel. So the different colors are just the branding of the different media companies. So we looked at the 7 leading ones. 3 of them are financial newspapers, which is another phenomenon to discuss. But this is a financial arm of Haaretz. Haaretz is like a quality broadsheet. You can say it's like The Guardian. This one, Calculist, the financial online newspaper of Ynet, which is the most popular media outlet in Israel. This is another financial newspaper. This is a general news outlet, and this is a general news outlet. So we have like 4 of them are general news, and 3 of them are financial newspaper. But these are the 7 main websites that Israelis go to when they want to read about what's going on in their country and in the world in general. Why did we decide to even go to this project in the first place? Well, first, wait, I didn't start. First, we were curious. As people, journalists and academics who write about Israeli media, we're very much aware of how this phenomenon of branded content is constantly growing and penetrating into places that are kind of, it's questionable whether it's good that it happens. So we wanted to know, is it as bad as we think? And to do some justice, saying, is it everywhere as bad as we think? Or is there a difference? Are there, online newspapers that are better than others? But in a more kind of formal way, we set ourselves a number of goals. First, we wanted to promote transparency. That is to make or impose transparency on news outlets, showing what's going on there, what's going on in their journalistic content, and to what extent it is influenced by commercial deals with advertisers. We wanted to create an incentive for these outlets to become more ethical by comparing them and ranking them, to encourage them, to become better. And through this project, we wanted to promote media literacy. That is, to provide tools for audiences, for consumers, to read about branded content, to understand how it's implemented, what is it about? Okay, that's, are they aware? To make people more aware. So what are we talking about? And I think this was a problem here of, I think some of us talked about different phenomena. We're talking about a phenomenon that, from the side of the industry, marketing, advertising industry, or the media industries, is called branded content, or native advertising in the context of online environment mainly. Sponsorship is often mentioned, and it's more or less in the same neighborhood. I called in the PhD embedded branding, and we can talk about if it's a good term or not, but that was the term I was using from a critical point of view. Sometimes it's called surreptitious advertising, to point at the manipulative nature of it, or stealth marketing, which yet another name to say, there's a problem here. So I'm going to use stealth marketing. I think it clicks. One of the main things I tried to say in the PhD was that branded content is a new phase of commercialization. Okay, because we know product placement. Whenever I told people about a PhD, they said, "Oh, it's James Bond, it's E.T., it's all these examples of product placement, like this one for American Idol." Okay, the cups on the table, the candy, the bottle of beer, the computer. That's all about products or services that are kind of inserted in our face as if by the way, right? But I was trying to say branded content is not about product placement. It's basically about everything beyond product placement. It's about this. And I don't know if you get what you see here. Should I explain it? This is a scene from A Star is Born, which is kind of a similar format to American Idol, the American singing contest. So it's an Israeli version. And when I ask people what they see, or they say, well, it's the competition, it's A Star is Born, it's the program that we know in Israel. I say, no, what do you really see here?
The counter.
You see Coca-Cola. But Coca-Cola is not there. But Coca-Cola is there all over the place, okay? Because the set of the program is all branded in the colors, the logo of, and this was called by the production the Red Room, yeah? And this is an outcome of a commercial deal with Coca-Cola was a sponsor, and this is only one expression of that commercial deal. What I was trying to say is that branded content has two features or dimensions that are dominant. The first, it tends to be abstract. The second is that it tends to expand in the space of programming, whatever programming we're talking about. And I think this visual explains it quite well. It's nowhere, but it's all over the place. So branded content in the digital age is everywhere, yet at the same time, it's nowhere. How do you measure something that is everywhere and nowhere? That is all about blurring, that you really, it's intangible in many ways. How do you start approaching that? So first of all, this is one of the reasons, well, that's the main reason why I call it suicide, treat it as pollution, okay? We see it as a phenomenon that is polluting public discourse and our ability to lead free public discourse. So we see it first and foremost as a problem. It's commercial pollution of the public sphere. And our thought was what we're creating actually is an index of pollution in the same way that we measure air pollution by cars, water pollution, I don't know this feels so well, but truly they have indexes. And what the approach I suggest is, if it's everywhere in the program, we have to analyze and dissect different expressions of brand presence in the program and relate to at least two dimensions. The first is how brands are taking over messages of programming. When I say programming, I mean it in the broadest way. It can be a radio program, a television program, a journalistic article, like the broadest way possible. We should look at how brand takes over the messages of the program and how it's embodied in the visual elements of programming. 5 minutes, oh my God, okay. I'll try to do the best. So, we took this model that I kind of established or suggested regarding reality TV. Cheap entertainment, what do you care about reality TV? It's fine. And we tried to implement these principles on analyzing journalistic content, and I'll just do the best that I can to show what we did. Okay? We created 3 categories, and first was relating to the messages, the second was to visual elements, and the third one we added, because we were dealing with journalism, and we asked questions about disclosure, to what extent these commercial deals are disclosed, and their prominence in this news outlet, like how prominent they are as a phenomenon in the overall environment of the news outlet. I'll give examples of the questions we asked about each category. Okay. For example, we asked about, do we see brands taking ownership of whole categories in a news outlet, like family health, okay? Is it all like sponsored by a certain brand? Or was content used to promote values or lifestyle, which serve sponsors? Were they using brand presenters, like either celebrities or other presenters, to integrate them within the editorial content? Were brand slogans integrated within the editorial content? Okay, were they using slogans from advertising campaign in the editorial content? And I'm telling you, this happens. We also related to restricted products, like were there drugs or tobacco products promoted through branded content? This happens. And was there any use of product placement? So when we looked at visual elements, we asked questions like, was the space designed by the look and feel of the sponsor's branding? Could we see any traditional advertising around the content? Was there any extra interaction around the content which directly links to the sponsor? For example, games or contents, or advice, or maps, and I'll show what I mean in a minute. So the third category was, we asked questions, was there consistent disclosure? Okay, did they use the same term across different articles? Okay. Was the disclosure proper? Was it like, I don't know, guest article in partnership, or was it specifically saying it's an ad, or it's branded content, or sponsored content? Were journalists involved in this practice of writing branded content articles? Was it promoted through the homepage and so forth? I just want to go forward. I'm going to try and give you an example of how this looks like in Ynet, which is the most popular news outlet in Israel. It's part of one of the biggest, of course, media groups in Israel. What's that? It's a tuna can. They're selling tuna, Starfish, right? You all know Starfish, right? This is... Oh, sorry.
1 minute.
Okay, so, well, this is how a whole section, wait, okay, get rid of this, okay, this is how a whole section in the health section on Ynet looked like, branded under the title Healthy Family. Okay, you can see, I just want you to see it better. So, seemingly it's a section about how to lead a healthier lifestyle for your family. Basically, practically, as you can see, it's all branded with Starkist. Every and each article here is directly and indirectly related to, for example, this is an article about how you can have healthy uses for the oil in tuna cans, how you can cook with it, like healthy things for your family. There is banners of tuna around it. But these are all articles, some of them written by the journalists of that news outlet. There's a video here, which I'd love you to understand, but it says that parents who don't give regular fish portions, especially tuna, to their kids are endangering their healthy development. And this is a incorporation between Ynet and Tuna Starkist. So you can see how, and I can talk more and more about it, you know, there are tips here that are all oriented to create a blurring effect between tuna and why not? Okay, linking it through a family healthy lifestyle. Do you know what? By the way, why they do it? Because tuna manufacturers have to deal with all the implications about mercury in fish and so forth. So they want to brand themselves as healthy, food for the family, for kids. I don't have any time.
You have no time. Can you go to your conclusion?
Okay, yeah. So, anyways, I'm not going to talk about the process of how we did it. That was like the final ranking, and the most worrying thing is that the most popular news outlet is also the one that is the most highly polluted with commercial content and blurring the line between journalistic content and advertising. What I want to say just about impact is that what we did was beyond creating a very vibrant media coverage and being used as in the war between media outlets, their competition. So they were using the index to kind of say, oh, you're the worst ever, let us tell you about the index. So that was, from our point of view, a good thing. The index also contributed to the drop of Israel to partly free in Freedom of the Press Global Index. That's mine. So I'll just finish with just quoting of what they said. Israel declined from free to partly free due to the growing impact of Israel Hayom, whose owner subsidized business model in blah blah blah, it doesn't matter, and it's another disease. And the unchecked expansion of paid content, some of it government funded, whose nature was not clearly identified to the public. That's another paragraph that they elaborated. Another source of concern was the increasing use of unmarked advertising and branded content in major media outlets, including the most popular news website, Ynet. So that kind of our index was a tool for them to see this phenomenon exists in Israel and is the most worrying one. So I have lots more to say, but I'll have to finish.